Good morning, everyone. Let me just start out by thanking, or congratulating rather, James Busher and his Turner Motorsports team for their championship that they won last night. Also, certainly going to settle the nationwide series later on this afternoon. 3 drivers in contention of that series. Looking for hopefully an exciting conclusion. And of course, tomorrow on Sunday we'll settle the Sprint Cup Championship. And much like last year, there's 2 drivers that are set to really go chase that championship. And it's an interesting contrast because you've got a 5-time proven champion, you got a young driver, team that hadn't been together all that long. One's the underdog in terms of the points situation, and the other is chasing but with a lot of experience. So it should be a great, exciting conclusion to a really good year. And as Steve mentioned, while this is a time to certainly celebrate 2012, it's also my time with you to talk about, what's happened a little bit in this season and look ahead to what's going to happen in 2013, in particular since, what we're now calling the Gen 6 car is in play in terms of it's getting an amazing amount of acceptance, and there's been an unprecedented amount, as you well know, of collaboration to get here, to get that car in terms of in step with what the manufacturers believe is the best looking race car, and having enough technology in that race car. But the missing and final piece, which we're working on now, is to improve on the quality of racing, which is, everyone knows, is a stated goal of ours, to have the closest, most competitive, tightest racing that we can. And that's what we're testing now. Those are the rules packages that will be building around the car that I'm seeing the kind of things that I was hoping to hear in terms of the performance of these cars and how that's going to help us achieve our goals. So we're excited about that. We're excited about concluding the season. We're excited about a number of things from a business standpoint, which is our television agreements with Fox have been, as you know, secured. We'll be talking to our other partners as we go down in the coming weeks and months. Plenty of encouraging signs there. The tracks economy still is what it is. We're still disproportionately affected by sponsorship in particular. Most of the other sports leagues don't have nearly the reliance on that, and obviously that's still under a lot of pressure. Teams will tell you, we will tell you, working to do all the things that we can to make that challenge, to get through that challenge as best we can. But so with that, I'm happy to open up to any questions.
If anyone has any questions, hold up your hands. We'll start up down here in the blue, and we'll go over to Lee and then Jenna. So first over here.
Brian Nelson, Motor Racing Network. Brian, can you just talk a little bit about your vision, the opportunity, the possibility of NASCAR racing on dirt in the future? I understand that's one of the possibilities for the Truck Series next year.
Well, it's part of our history in some high level, still is at the weekly level, and that hasn't been completely worked out, but that's a possibility, and that would put a unique twist on the Truck Series if that is able to be worked out. But it's a part of our history. We have a lot of fans that's what they grew up watching and seeing at their local short tracks. I ran a short track, a dirt track in Arizona. When I first got there, it was a dirt track, so I got a little experience in knowing how to get the track surface in some order, especially in a hot, dusty place like Arizona. Very difficult. So it'd be fun. It'll be fun to see if it happens.
Let's go to Lee, and then to Claire, and then to Nate.
Lee Spencer, Fox Sports. After going more than a decade, or at least talking about going to common templates, when Dodge came back into the sport the first time, what took so long in the evolution to get back to having cars look more like they're from the showroom rather than just strictly a combination of four manufacturers and losing that identity. Why the push now?
Well, we've been at this for a couple of years. It takes a while. It takes a long while, in particular if you're going to solicit the interest of an input, rather, of the car manufacturers, the teams, and everybody else that's affected. So it just takes time. We've been hearing for a long time that our fans like rivalries within the manufacturer group. Obviously, the car manufacturers like more identification, the better, and that's good for them. And then if we can have a trifecta where we can do all those things and then really put a rules package together that I've said from recently uses a lot more science than art to get closer, tighter competition, then we've got a home run package, and that's what we're planning to have.
We'll go with Claire, and then down to Jenna, and then over to Mike Embry.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. With the changes forthcoming in speed and the .com of NASCAR.com changing and the TV deal partially done and the different ways that fans are watching the races, what do you envision leading into the future with the television side of things and the media side of fans watching? What do you see as the innovation to continue the coverage of our sport to increase the ratings?
Well, we're going to be working together with all of our television partners and all of our media partners to do two things: to continue to present our sport in innovative and broader ways than they currently do that now, and they want to do that. And then we're going to be talking about, all of the places that that sports content is going to be consumed by race fans and potential race fans, both digitally and otherwise, and how all that sort of marries up with building our fan base and satisfying and interacting with our fans, and it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time for anybody that has high-end, valuable sports content to be in that position to look at all the things that are coming and make the right decisions, hopefully to make sure we don't miss one of those opportunities that goes by.
Jennifer AP. Two questions about things that happened this week. The incident with Jeff and Boyer, kind of a fine line. You can't really have guys using weapons as cars, but it did massive amounts of attention for NASCAR. So you're walking a fine line, I guess, in what is and isn't allowed. It's sport, but it's entertainment. So what do you do? How do you sort of handle that? Because you've got the boys have at it policy. So what does NASCAR do? And the Keselowski thing. The Keselowski thing, I understand the rule. It's not tweeting. You can't have, it's not the phone itself, but, it's great for the fans that he can provide that access in the car. So right. Is that something that NASCAR can do going forward? Yeah. I guess you get what I'm getting.
Well, yeah, sure. First part of the question, really not that fine a line. We have a stated approach that this is a contact sport. We expect contact, especially late in the race. But I always say, and there are limits. The drivers know what those limits are, and you can cross those limits, and that's exactly what happened on Sunday. And very obvious and very easy for us to figure that out and for everybody to figure that out. And so we deal with it. That doesn't change the idea that we're not going to walk away from, including Sunday. We expect there was contact last night at a pretty significant level late in the race. That's the history of this sport, and we're going to, there'll be limits. The drivers know where the limits are. If they have any confusion on that, they can certainly talk to us directly or look at our calls and how we've dealt with when we think that those limits have been broken, and that will be that. The second part of your question, we are the most aggressive in social and digital media in terms of our drivers and teams and tracks taking part in that. The trick is that in the cars today, and in particular in the future, now with fuel injection, we'll soon be talking to you about a digital cockpit that will be coming down the road, early as 2014. And smart devices and smartphones and other devices, can have an effect on manipulating the technology that is now going to be in the cars, and we have to be careful with that. And so that's why our policy is that you're simply not going to be able to take a device into the car with you. Doesn't mean that we're, not going to be the most aggressive at pushing that they have big social media plans and they take full advantage of it. And Brad's one of the leaders in that with 300,000 Twitter followers. And so we're going to keep pushing for them to do just that.
We'll go with Mike, Nate, and Kenny Bruce.
Mike Hembry, Speed.com. Brian, in the 50s and 60s, there was a lot of concentration on the cars in this series, manufacturer rivalries, Ford versus Chevy fans fighting in the grandstands, et cetera. Then we kind of moved into more of a driver personality focus. Now it seems like we're moving more toward emphasizing the cars and trying to bring fans in through that gateway. How do you see the balance now between those two things? Cars more important than drivers now, or how do you work that?
No, we don't look at it that way. I think we arguably, by the new car in 2007, arguably we didn't help ourselves with the manufacturer rivalries that are always important. And so we want to try to elevate that back up to where it traditionally is. So that's number one. The drivers are always going to be, as my dad used to say, the actors on the stage or the stars in the, on the stage and so on. And that's, we're doing a lot of things to elevate their star power, and that's the number one connection to our fan base, and always will be. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that our drivers get the right attention and accolades and elevate not only in NASCAR but throughout all the sports. So there are no competing goals here.
We'll go Nate, Kenny, and then Marty Smith.
Nate Ryan, USA Today. Brian, go back to the cell phone thing. After Daytona, when Brad tweeted during the red flag, NASCAR was pretty forthright about, like, this is a really good thing, and this is something we want to see more of. And then this week, the message kind of changed a little bit. So for fans that you're trying to reach through digital media, is that, when you talk about being tricky, is that where it's a difficult line to balance?
No, it didn't change a bit. It evolved. And, that was the first time in Daytona that we had seen somebody in real time tweeting, during a red flag or whatever, at that point. We love that. We just now know that we have things in the car that could be affected by devices, smartphones and alike, that we have to make sure that we don't interfere with that and give somebody an opportunity to, even if it was unintentional, to manipulate some portion of digital devices that we're going to have in the car, have them now with electronic fuel injection. And so we immediately love the idea, love the attention that brought to the sport, encourage it, but have to balance it in the competition end to make sure nobody gains an advantage.
And following up real quick, when you talk about digital cockpits and the glass dashboards things, I know you mentioned in the past, is there going to be an opportunity for social media through that during
I
the race?
fully expect that we're going to, we have one of the real incredible opportunities because of how information, telemetry, and all kinds of things that are integral to the running of each race. And for us to be able to share that information down the road in very, very interesting ways with our fans, we are in the best position in sports just because we have so much of that information that is so relevant. So I fully expect that to be a part of it, sure.
Kenny, Marty, and back to Reed.
Yeah, Brian, Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. You mentioned earlier talking about the new car. One of the goals is obviously going to be better competition. If you guys are able to give the teams the tools to provide that. If you look at the debut of the car of tomorrow, it took a while for teams to get comfortable with that and to really make improvements on it so that the competition could grow, get closer. Are you concerned that there's going to be that period of learning and that the competition's not going to be what fans are going to expect when the new car hits the track?
You know, I'll tell you, we learned a lot, and I learned a lot personally on that particular debut of that car. And the collaboration, while I thought it was fairly high at the time, it wasn't as high as it needed to be. The testing, the way we're doing it, the manufacturer support, I thought it was pretty high. It wasn't high enough. It wasn't even close to high enough. Today, that's totally changed. And I expect the drivers to have a lot more time under their belt. We're also not phasing it in as we did, if you recall, in '07, which made it even more difficult. 1 week they're running one thing, next week they're trying to adjust back. That made it more difficult. So it's fair to say that as we are going down the road today, we want to change that. But don't underscore, there's one more thing on that car that we did not attempt to do with the '07 car. You know, you're talking about body styles, safety innovations, and those are all good things. Common templates, we can all debate that a little bit. But the emphasis on the cars driving better, differently, and the ability to have the hallmark close competition, in particular on the 1.5 miles, is what we're really seeking here. And we're going to make, I've told the team owners, we've talked to obviously everybody, that these are going to be pretty significant things. Whatever the collection of things that we're going to, put on the car, and they will be designed to have tighter competition. It's as simple as that. Not every driver will like that, per se, because some drivers like the exact rules packages, notwithstanding the look of the car, that they have today. And I hope we'll be very successful at that. I know we will be over time. I hope we are, earlier than that. So
We'll go Marty, Reed, and then we got Bob Pollock.
Marty Smith, ESPN. Brian, you noted in your opening statement how much more NASCAR as an industry is dependent on the economy. And, the owners out here assume so much risk. Judging by what I see on this new car, it seems like there is a push being made to offer a greater platform for the sponsor. What else can NASCAR do, or what responsibility does the sanctioning body have to make sure that the owners have that platform that they can sell to corporate America?
Well, we have traditional things that you would think we would have at our disposal, and making the space available differently and smarter in the car. That's one thing. There's being ever mindful of the cost issue being another. But we're not going to be in a position to change, the economy, how just about every company is being much more judicious and careful with their advertising spends, no matter how well they work. They're not in a position, as they were a few years ago, to make big bets, out over long periods of time at the level that they were. It's understandable. And then you throw in, from an economy standpoint, that our fans, the best in the world, drive for the furthest. They stay the longest. They often, as you guys know, build their race weekends around family vacations and all kinds of things. Well, the cost to do that and the unemployment, when you don't have a job and the costs are still going up, it isn't hard to understand why we will be in a little bit different position. So we're working on all those things, and there's we're doing everything we can, and things will get better on that, and they have gotten better in some areas. So we've put a lot of new companies into the sport. We'll always have some attrition too, and so a lot of these companies are starting to get early good results, like 5 Hour Energy Drink being one, and there are a number of companies that we have, but we're more reliant. There's no doubt about that on corporate sponsorship.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. Brian, you've talked a lot about the science and technology going into the new car, digital cockpit. Brad's incident sort of brought that to light as well. With the development of the new car, do you ever see a future where NASCAR may allow real-time telemetry during practice on competition weekend in order to hasten the development of the new car?
You know, that's obviously something that and more in terms of how information flows throughout the event, and of how that affects competition, cost, and alike. But I think we're going to try to figure all that out. I mean, you're seeing it with fuel injection. You're seeing with, a digital cockpit. We have Sprint as our lead partner in the wireless business, so they're helping us figure that out. So we'll manage that differently than we did in the past, but we'll still have to be careful of how, if we don't get some unintended consequences with, we're still, race team versus race team, and we don't disturb that competitive balance.
Let's go, Bob, Lewis, and Mike.
Bob Parker, Sporting News. In the wake of Dale Earnhardt Jr. having to sit out 2 races because of concussions, are you considering and or implementing any changes in your medical procedures as it relates to the diagnosis or treatment of head injuries?
Yeah, well, we do look at that policy, head injuries, and obviously concussions, which are a pretty big topic in a few different sports currently. I was very pleased the way Dale handled that. Obviously, we've said that, and there's a personal responsibility if you feel like you're not yourself, and there's some things that your body's telling you that you just don't play on and race on, and it starts there. And so I think he took a big lead example. We have independent doctors that do review, and we have a very clear policy that if you're not feeling like yourself, in particular if you've had a hard crash, that's follow Dale Earnhardt's exact plan. He's in the chase. He's Dale Earnhardt. He could have taken all kinds of different approaches, but he took the right one, and so we're going to continue to look at it. But it's obviously an individual driver and team that must figure out those early symptoms.
Lewis.
Lewis Frank Reuters and Speed Week. Before the common template, you remember that manufacturers and drivers would come and lobby your officials, and when they didn't get satisfaction, they'd come to us and lobby us. They're cooperating.
Thanks a lot. I forgot to criticize you for that years ago. Okay. Yeah, okay.
And what procedures? Everybody's nice and playing well now, but what happens? When the competition starts after Daytona, and they want changes. What procedures are in place to make sure that there will not be that similar type of lobbying?
I bet it's exactly what happens in the past, and that'll be fine. We're gonna, we have an R&D center that we didn't have years ago to examine, who's ahead or behind in terms of aero and every other conceivable thing. So we'll have a much better handle on A, getting it right in the first place, and B, correcting things that may go wrong. We're okay with that. That's part of the sport. We're not going to run around and complain that somebody's grabbed a media member and doesn't like a certain situation. As long as that our drivers and our teams don't criticize the integrity of the sport. They not like certain things. They may think we're running a little slower. We may make a bad call or two. We certainly will do that. And they're, but as long as that's not the case, we fully expect there to be lots of back and forth.
We'll go to Mike in Detroit up here second, and then we'll come around to David Newton.
Yeah, Brian. Mike Brudenell from the Detroit Free Press over here.
Oh, okay.
What's good tomorrow for NASCAR? Brad win or Jimmy winning a 6th championship? And who do you think will win at the end of the day?
Do you really expect me to answer both those questions? I'll say this. Look, Roger Penske is an unbelievable owner and person, and it's what's surprising is he hasn't won more championships multiple championships so far, and this would be obviously his first, so that would be a tremendous thing. Brad would be, it'll be. I can say that it'll be earned no matter what, because both drivers, as what we're finding out in the chase, what always happens is that certain drivers, Tony and Carl did it, and Tony to a little higher level, elevate their game. And if you remember, there was a lot of discussion, well, that really doesn't happen in motorsports, and that really can't happen, and everybody's trying as hard as they can, and you know, you could do anything you want, and that really wouldn't get better performances, and we now know better than that. So tomorrow, whoever is on their game, both teams, you know, one mistake, we all know what happened last week. There's going to be some contact out there going on, and you know, we'll just have to see.
All right, uno, dos, tres. That's for you, Sabrina.
Hi, Brian. Sebastian Ross, Social Buzz TV. Statistics currently show right now that only 16% of chairmen and CEOs are currently utilizing social media. Do you have plans to aggressively start to interact on Twitter with fans, drivers, etc.?
Well, you know, we do. I mean, NASCAR has lots of ways that we communicate with our fans, and I'll be careful myself of how I want to do that directly, but I fully expect to have, you know, lots of ways that I'm going to be interacting with our fans in a digital way.
What's the time frame currently to be able to have a digital integration in the cars for social media?
Well, we don't have a timeline.
David Newton up here, and then to Jeff Owen.
Yeah, Brian, David Newton, ESPN.com. I was at the SEMA show recently where O'Donnell was on a panel of motorsports.
How'd he do?
He did well, but the whole talk was about the future of motorsports, and it seemed that things you've mentioned here about the dashboard and the digital and all, the thing that came out of that is NASCAR has kind of lost its cool factor, especially trying to bring in the younger audience. And they're talking about shorter races, shorter schedules, and things like that. Are you looking at things like that to try to bring back that cool factor? And does a driver such as Brad Keselowski, who, whether he wins it or not, because he does some of these things with the phone and all that, does that bring some of the cool factor back?
You know, I think that's sure. I think young people today, young potential fans, the younger you go. I tell our guys all the time, we're in the middle of a conference room and the computer breaks, go call a 12-year-old. That's who can fix get us back online. So the idea that young fans are digitally engaged and getting excited about things much differently than they used to, not just plopping by the TV watching sports and other entertainment. Sure, that's all changing at a rapid clip, and we're going to do you know, everything we can to stay pace with that and take advantage of it. It's a great opportunity for us.
Jeff Owen, Sporting News. Brian, can you talk a little bit about the objective of putting the driver's last name on the windshield of the new car and what you're looking to accomplish with that?
Yeah, it's just you know, we are striving for raising their awareness all the time and every time, and we're striving for continuity of you know, as these paint schemes have had to change more frequently than they used to. The continuity of Jeff Gordon in a Flame 24 DuPont is a little different now, and so we're trying to do things that will build their star power, at the same time have a little continuity for our fans to follow their favorite drivers.